What's going on, everybody? My name is Nimai Delgado, and in this video, I'm going to be sharing some of the strategies and techniques that I've learned over the past decade of training that helped me grow bigger biceps. But before we get into that, let's talk about why someone might want to be growing their biceps in the first place, because it does take quite a bit of time and effort. Maybe you like the way that it looks, or maybe you want to win an arm wrestling contest, or maybe you've been so conditioned by culture and media that you think that by having bigger biceps, you'll feel more worthy and deserving of love. Okay, maybe not that last one. That one's a little too deep for this video. We'll talk about that a whole other time. But regardless of what your reasons are, I am here to help you pump up those biceps. Before I get into specifics, I want to address bicep genetics because it's so easy to fall into the trap of comparison and comparing your bicep genetics to somebody else's. Now, just know genetics are what they are. They're neither good nor bad. And some people have shorter bicep bellies, which means that they have a more pronounced peak that's shaped more like a baseball, and other people have more longer bicep genetics, which are shaped more like a football. So regardless of what type of genetics you have, it's important to not label them as good or bad. They just are what they are. And you can just know that you can still maximize the growth of whatever bicep genetics you were blessed with. So let's start with some of the fundamentals of bicep training, starting with optimal training frequency. Now, this is a range and really depends on what your current workout split is and your level of fitness experience. That can range from anywhere from 2 times per week all the way up to 6 times per week. And personally, what I found best has worked for me is training them 3 times per week given my current workout split. How many sets per week should you be training biceps? Now, this also depends on your level of fitness experience. For a beginner, you can aim for a total of 8 to 15 sets per week. So you can divide your weekly total sets by how many sessions you're doing for that week. For example, if you're training 2 times a week, then you can aim for 4 to 7 sets per session. Or if you're training 3 times a week, then you can aim for 3 to 5 sets per session. If you're more advanced, then you can benefit from doing a higher weekly volume from around 15 to 20 sets per week. And personally, I've been keeping my weekly volume around 18 sets per week. So divided by 3 training sessions per week means that I'm aiming for about 8 sets per session. How many reps should you be doing per set? Now, the optimal number of reps, again, depends on your training split and your goals, but a great range for hypertrophy would be from 8 to 15 reps per set with a load of about 30 to 85% of your 1 rep max. Now, I also like to split up my rep ranges and loading depending on my workout schedule. So some days I'll train in the 10 to 20 rep range at about 50% of my 1 rep max, and other days I'll train in the 8 to 12 range at about 85% of my 1 rep max. And I found that oscillating between these 2 rep ranges allows me to keep training interesting and also prevents me from plateauing. All right, next up, how much rest do I need in between sets? So biceps are a relatively small muscle group, so you don't have to rest as long as if you were training legs, for example. So I would rest enough time for you to perform the next set as close to your maximal productivity as possible. So for me, I feel fully rested after about 90 seconds and beyond. Which exercises are best for building biceps? Okay, now that we've gotten all that other stuff out of the way, let's talk about the real reason why you're here. You want to know which exercises are the most effective for building those biceps. Now, my number 1 exercise for building biceps are barbell curls. Now, you can use either the straight bar or the easy bar depending on your preference. Some people experience wrist and forearm pain from the straight bar, so an easy bar might be a better option if that is your case. But personally, I prefer the straight bar because it puts my wrist in more of a supinated position, which allows me to feel the inner head of my bicep during each rep. Now, you'll want to start with a shoulder width stance and grip slightly wider than your hips. I like to start with my arms fully extended and then curl the weight up to about the bottom of my chest, allowing for some shoulder flexion at the top. One tip for this exercise, and all other bicep exercises for that matter, is to emphasize a squeeze at the top of the rep. I like to imagine squeezing so hard that I engage every single muscle fiber in my bicep before slowly lowering the weight back down to the starting position, making sure that your arms go back to full extension. A really common mistake that I see people making is that they keep their arms bent at the bottom of the motion, which doesn't allow you to get that full range of motion and elongation. Now, if you find yourself doing that, then this may be a good idea for you to drop the weight to get more quality reps. So my next favorite exercise is the incline dumbbell curl. Now, don't sleep on this one. When you perform this with good form, this exercise can produce a significant amount of bicep and hypertrophy gains, partly because it fully loads the biceps under a full stretch. So the first thing you're going to want to do is choose a weight that allows you to maintain good technique throughout all sets and reps. Start by adjusting a bench to an incline of about 45 to 60 degrees, and then grab the dumbbells and sit back with your back against the bench. Allow your arms to fully hang by your sides with the palms facing forward. This is key. One pro tip that allows me to feel more inner bicep engagement is to grip the dumbbell with the pinky and the ring finger. Now, while keeping your upper arm still, squeeze your biceps and begin to flex your elbows. I like to keep my shoulders pinned back and try to eliminate any shoulder flexion in this particular exercise. You're going to want to squeeze your biceps and pause at the top, keeping your palms facing up towards the ceiling the entire time before slowly lowering the weight back down to its starting position, and then doing the same with the next arm. So some of the common mistakes that I see with this move is people tend to swing the weight upwards and they don't lower it slow enough. And they also forget to fully extend your arm at the bottom, and you can actually receive a lot of benefit from keeping your arm fully extended at the bottom while holding that dumbbell, because this can stimulate hypertrophy in and of itself. If you need to lower the weight, don't be that person that's doing incorrect form. My next favorite bicep exercise is the single arm cable curl. This move can be performed either facing the cable stack or facing the opposite direction. I like to alternate directions because it does load the bicep slightly differently, and this move is meant to be done very strictly and slowly. I like to imagine keeping my elbow fixed in a point in space and not allowing it to travel from that point. This forces me to be really intentional with the contraction and reduces the chance of me swinging or allowing any shoulder flexion. So the next exercise that I want to highlight are preacher curls. Again, you can either use a straight bar or an easy bar for this move, but both are effective when performed with good form. The position of the pad forces you to place a strong emphasis on the negative portion of the rep where you lower the barbell to the starting position. Again, you don't have to go heavy because it is significantly harder to curl a lot of weight when you have your arms in this position fully extended. One key is to try to curl the weight up to the point of maximum contraction and not go beyond it, or else you'll end up resting the weight and not engaging your biceps fully. This can end up looking like a partial range of motion, but I promise you it will burn much more this way. A common mistake that I see with the preacher curl is allowing your torso to roll forward and not extending your arms fully, which then reduces your range of motion and you basically end up rocking back and forth, which might be a sign for you to lower the weight. And finally, the last move that I like to incorporate into my bicep training is the alternating bicep curl with dumbbells. One thing to consider with this exercise is that most gyms increase dumbbells by increments of 5 pounds, which for a smaller muscle group can be a lot. This may end up creating a little bit of a swinging motion, and a swinging motion can be okay if you make sure to slowly control the weight on the way down. But if you start swinging too much, then just opt for a lower set of dumbbells and control the weight. So you're going to want to start with a shoulder width stance, hold a dumbbell in each hand with your palms facing towards the body. You can start by curling one arm up and rotate until the palms are facing up, and exaggerate the end of the position by hyperflexing the bicep and leaning in to the curling side. Then you're going to want to control the weight back down to the starting position and then repeat it with the other arm. I also like to use that same tip that I mentioned in the incline dumbbell curl, where I like to grip the dumbbell with my pinky and my ring finger to emphasize the inner bicep head. All right, so there you have it. These are my top 5 exercises for building bigger biceps. I know there are a ton of other different bicep exercises that you could incorporate into your training program, but these are the ones that I have found to be the most effective for building bigger arms and bigger peaks. If you like this video, please leave a comment, or if you want to see more videos like this from me, please let me know in the comments which ones, and I will create those videos in the future. And in the meantime, I appreciate you watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe for future videos.